Hi, everybody. Today I have a really special guest here on my channel and also the channel of my shop, Tarotpuoti. Welcome, Brian Cain.
Hello, thanks for having me on again, Hanya. Am I saying the name right, Hanya?
Honey, it's like the American
Hani,
version of
Hani.
honey.
All right, Hani. All right, got it.
Yeah. So the reason I'm actually meeting you, Brian, for the second time, we did an interview on your first book, Initiation into Witchcraft, a few years ago already.
I have the less pretty cover with me right now.
That's the amazing one. I have them both actually. But today we are meeting because of you have a new book out, The Religion of Witchcraft. So I thought we would talk about the books, but also because a lot of my viewers are here in Finland, and probably not everybody knows you, so you could a bit introduce yourself because I know you very well. Because since you are an Alexandrian priest and a witch and an author, and you do so many things, run a publishing house and everything, but you could tell a bit about yourself also to my viewers.
Well, I don't actually recall how you and I became acquainted now, but I do know that I met you around the time that I found out part of my family is from Sweden, and I found out that they were actually half Finnish. So, and we talked about that. Swedish by nationality, but Finnish by blood. So I know a few Finns, Alexandrian Finns. Those are the ones I know, and they're coming to the Alexandrian Grand Sabbath this year again, and that's amazing. And so yes, we have a presence there that I hope continues to grow. So I'm an Alexandrian witch and high priest of the religion of witchcraft that some people might know better as Wicca, right? I am an author, and like Hani, I have occult metaphysical witchcraft shops. I'm not sure what you classify yours as, but we have magical shops. I have shops in New Orleans and Salem, Massachusetts, in America. And me and my husband, Christian Day, the world's most famous warlock, is we're both authors, and we run Warlock Press, which is a publishing company where we publish a small handful of books, but very good books. And we run witchcraft festivals like the Festival of the Dead and the official Salem Witches Ball, Hexfest, and one we should definitely have you on is the WitchCon. So WitchCon is the largest online witchcraft event. We have over 100 presenters most of the time, but it's global. And that's what's really cool about it. It's an amazing event because you get teachers from all over the world that you may not have access to. I mean, it's amazing.
It,
So
it is. I
yeah.
joined, I don't know if it was last year or the year
And we
before.
have to have you on as a presenter. It's hard to remember everybody, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I joined it as a customer, and it was amazing to look all of the different videos of different traditions and people, and they were also helpful. There was one that was about making incense, and I did that incense, and I still have it left, and there was so many hours I couldn't watch even them all. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a lot, but if you get it, you can watch them at your leisure.
yeah.
This year, I'd say the big selling point is because only people who get the event can see these interviews, is we have a special private interview where Christian's interviewing Laurie Cabot, and then
Uh,
I'm actually interviewing Maxine Sanders next weekend. So those are just alone reasons to do it, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
that's I'm gonna do it this year too. So
there's also, and blessed be an apology to my elders. There's another first line Alexandrian priest, one of the older ones, who is going to be doing an interview, and Levi Rowland's doing his. He's not as well known, obviously, as Maxine, and I can't remember his name, but there's plenty of opportunities to really get some great content. And Levi was very impressed with the interview.
amazing. I can't wait. I enjoy also listening to Levi because the way that I found you was through your um, YouTube podcast with Levi, called Covendom on the Hexeducation channel. I found you there, and then I found your book, and then I was brave enough to to send you a message and request for an interview. So, but that was back in the day when I was still a seeker. And the funny thing is, I listened to all of the episodes, and you often talk about how your path started with Uncle Bucky's Big Blue Book. And I don't know, how do you feel about it now that if you imagine the 15-year-old Brian or whatever you was back then? So imagine that for somebody like me, your book, this one, was my Big Blue. This was what
A
I,
little bluish.
a little bluish. So how do you feel? Would you ever imagine that one day your book would be so influential to people that it ends up changing their actually life path? Because as we know, the path of the vocation of the priest and the priestess is it is transformational, to say the least.
I think that we're compelled to do this work. So I really don't think I did think about it, and even hearing you say it now, it does sort of seem surreal, you know. But the reason I wrote Initiation into Witchcraft, my first book, was to continue the conversation that our elders had started.
Yeah.
I'd seen a gap in the content to where in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and even into the 80s, most witchcraft books were written by initiates. Most public talks were by initiates. The microphone was firmly held for decades. And then all of a sudden it was just dropped,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that had to do with publishing companies like Llewellyn, who started publishing people who may not have had credentials or history. And I think there was also a change in the inner craft where we had kind of a pulling back in. Perhaps we'd tired of the spokesman for a decade or so.
Yeah.
So I felt like that there were very few initiates writing books, and I wanted to write one. That was the thing, but I didn't want it to be something that was just regurgitating information. So I think both of my books are strangely written. I just do. I think but it's me, and I think it's valuable. But they're filling holes in initiatory content.
Absolutely.
They may revisit the Witch's Creed or the Wiccan Reed, but when revisiting, it's with a further exploration and a further conversation, not simply this is the thing. Um, and I really tried to look into history and paint a picture for people of the journey of how initiation has impacted us as a magical people, as a species. Initiation and magic are our birthrights, if we choose to claim them, and they're our heritage if we choose to claim them. And so I very much just wanted to continue that conversation. I feel like it was an ode to the elders, and that's why I did the photographs the way that I did. It was sort of like a nice little nod
Yeah.
to remember when we did this. So thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. You're the one that read it.
Yeah, because for me, of course, I bought the book, but I also bought the ebook because I like to fall asleep listening to the ebook. And by the way, the reader in both of your, because you
I
have
got the
also
same guy. Yeah.
you have the audiobook also from
Yeah.
this, and I really love his voice because I want to fall asleep with the books. It's very, very, very pleasant. So I
Well, people used to call me. I've lost it a little bit because I haven't been talking to as many British witches as I did back in the day. My teacher passed away a few years ago, so some of the interactions just got limited. So once I start drinking wine, once I get back to the UK, it's going to be full on blown. I don't really have a British accent, but there's a hint to it. So people used to make fun of me and call me BBC Brian, which also could mean something else, just so everybody knows. But British Broadcasting Brian is what
yeah.
it was. So when we picked out the gentleman to do the voice for the book, because I didn't want to read the whole book. I don't think I would have done as well as he did. He was smooth, right? We said, I want a BBC accent for the book. And he did such a great job on the first one. I said, can we use the same guy? And I'd love to meet him. I feel like he's probably attractive, but
Yeah, he sounds like that. So that's always a plus. That's always a plus. But yeah, I've really enjoyed
probably
all
a
the,
70-year-old little bald man.
but we can always dream. can always dream. So I also you said that you write it in a strange way, but I love the way that you define concepts, you define things. Also, your opinion and your beliefs come through in the way that you write, and also with the history. It's there is like you also give room to the reader to think about these concepts. How do we feel about like the stuff? How do we identify ourselves or whatever? And what are the possibilities with the old religion? And you also have the sources all the way from Bibles to wherever. So it's really historical, but also modern and interesting
I
mix.
think the key to it all is getting people to think, which not everyone can. But
Yeah.
I think that is generally when I'm having a conversation, a lot of times people will think I'm just being cheeky or controversial or trying to be mean, but actually I'm trying to challenge people to think.
Yes. And I think that that's one thing also that I love in the podcast in Covendom because it's just too easy to just listen something that is already, you know, chewed down for you. So it's always great. And then when you do it now, the three of you, Ellie and Levi, and
But
also
every episode, one of us is going to be crazy. Like one of us is going to be crazy. Either I'm going to tell someone off, or Levi's going to, I don't know, pull out the Ten Commandments, or Ellie's going to become an alien.
yeah,
Like something's going to happen.
yeah. And then you have the interviewers and the callers and whatever. So they are just
Do you like the guests that we're having on now?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listening to Sharon Day, What's Not to Love, for example. You have
I've liked the format that we've done. It's been the last two seasons we've done that, but it is a bit more work.
yeah, of course it is. It takes more scheduling and everything, so of course. But they are, and I love the bravery about, but that shows also about all of yours knowledge and the level of how immersed you are, how you live the witchcraft, how
Well,
you
that's
are the craft, because they can ask whatever they want,
yes.
whenever they want.
That's the fun part. And once again, I did it strangely. So, and it's really weird to explain that to a guest. I'll say, "Will you come on and be, I don't say guest because then I have to explain. I said, "Will you come on and be our ambush interviewer?" What is that? I said, "Well, you'll be our guest." I always follow it up, with, "Well, you'll be our guest." But most people would be like what I'm doing right now. I'm coming on, you're asking me questions.
Yeah,
Well, I wanted to continue to make the show about us.
yeah,
So because that was the whole idea of the show. We're the Alexandrian initiates, da, da, da. And we try to have initiates on as much as possible, so to keep that theme. But once in a while, we have non-initiates
yeah,
on or people from other traditions. So it's going to veer in a different direction. So to keep the theme, we had to be the people to answer the questions.
yeah,
And the guests actually seem to love it. They love being in control. They feel less nervous. They have fun with it. And then eventually they do become part of the conversation and
yeah,
we plug their content and their work. So
yeah.
I'm enjoying it, but I do think it's once again strangely done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and by the way, I'm gonna link all of these things that we're talking about here with Brian down in the comment box and have links so you can find all this amazing content on top of this. But let's slide a bit into the books. So the first one, you kind of said that maybe you should have written this one first. Do you still?
Kind of, yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, Obviously, that's not how it was meant to be.
yeah,
I think it's important, actually, that I did say that. I think it's actually important that I wrote Initiation into Witchcraft first because it needed to be the beacon. You know, as I was writing that book, my teacher, Val Hughes, when I guess, soldier on the idea, like not that I needed to, but we feel like that sometimes. And she said, "Well, if you're going to do this, Brian, push back." And I knew exactly what she meant. Push back against the ebb and tide against initiates, against all of that. So, which you guys probably don't encounter as much in Finland, but in America, it kind of became the thing in the last few decades. And I think it is in the UK as well now. So I had that in my mind. So I needed to have that strong statement before I could then come in with a softer hand.
yeah,
I think, but it's who knows? But I felt like the second book is talking more about the broader history
Yeah.
and the beginnings and the mythology and the real religious history of witchcraft. You know, why this is a religion, why it became a religion, why it is contacted to religion. Whereas the second book is, or the first book, is more about the priesthood itself,
Yeah.
you know, specifically Gardnerian and Alexandrian. I'm a little more inclusive in the religion of witchcraft because it's a whole religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so therefore it does become less narrow. So in a way, yes, I do, but I also think it was needed to be done strangely.
I also feel because when I read this, I have tons of books, all of which from the elders and whatnot on my shelves. But even I got something new out of this, and which was it really lovely because at some point you get bored reading the same books all over
You
again.
do. Which
But
was my fear. I'm like, if I'm going to
yeah,
write on these subjects, they can't just be
no,
the same thing.
this was really different than the first one. But for me, the initiation, of course, came into a perfect timing, and this was the perfect book to have when I really needed to think that is this for me? What am I ready? Like, or what should I do and what should I know? So this was perfect for that. But also now this when running a store, metaphysical shop, and meeting with different type of people that want different things, that want to be included in witchcraft. I think this book it reaches a broader audience and it gives a lot to also people who might not be even seeking for initiation into British traditional witchcraft. So this has like a wider range of people that I think will really, really benefit from the book.
Well, my mission statement with the religion of witchcraft, because anything we create, even a store, as you're aware, you start out with this idea and then somehow it just keeps evolving. The main idea of this book, The Religion of Witchcraft, was to highlight the fact that in the witchcraft revival, there were a lot of different people. I like to use Robert Cochrane as my favorite example of this. So in America, and probably in the UK and other places, but particularly in America, we have a movement here that we've nicknamed the Stang Gang,
Yeah.
you know, and it's they call themselves traditional witches, right? That's the theme. And they're all very Robert Cochrane, but most of them either don't have any religiosity or they worship the devil in the woods, and that's as far as it goes. And they're inspired by Robert Cochrane. He's kind of like their whole hero. And it's like, well, Robert Cochrane worshipped a goddess, and Robert Cochrane worshipped a horned god. And Robert Cochrane was in England, and he had a coven, and he had initiations, and he fit all the bills, all the, you know, dotted all the T's, you know, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's of this movement,
Yeah.
you know, that he wasn't so different than Gerald Gardner or Alexander's Sybil Leek, all of them. Regardless of what you think their origin stories are, all of these people had the same idea of what witchcraft was. They were all in the same country and they were all in the same time period, decades apart, but they all had similar beliefs. So this religion was not just necessarily confined, even at that time, to any one singular movement, you know, and I think that's just continued. And I think what was pre-Gardnerian, because I do believe that it existed,
Yeah.
um, is not so easily defined either. You know, we don't quite have a thing on it. Now, I believe in the power of initiation, particularly in what I call the lines of succession, which I consider to be Gardnerian and Alexandrian primarily. I believe in the power of that because the results are there. It came into the world. We don't have anyone really tracing through Sybil Leek these days. You know, I'm sure someone out there is saying it, but it's not really like a movement, you know. That doesn't make her unimportant. It just means that her conduit was not initiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I loved about this book, this because at least probably not here in Finland or in Europe. not everybody knows everybody. All the names that you keep on talking about, all the elders and all the people that have been important to the continuation of the craft, even outside of like Alexandrian or Gardnerian. But I'm finding it interesting and funny that you chose to go with these little pictures and really different people here. It's not just like Alex and Maxine, which I really appreciated. We get to really experience these, you know, elders in a way. And for me, I'm so right-brained. It helps me. I want to see the picture, even though it's like just like a cartoonish way. But it just,
That was for copyright reasons.
yeah,
Like we were able to completely avoid. So Christian had a beautiful, I can't think of her name. I should apologize to all the gods and her for not remembering her name. It's in the book, obviously. I want to say I know what it is, but I don't want to say the wrong person. But she worked with when Christian revised his book, The Witch's Book of the Dead. She did the art for the people on there. So I had the idea. I was like, why don't we get her to draw? She could just draw them, And so, no, it wasn't consensual. They were just drawn based on real photos. But so that was a way to avoid that, quite frankly. But I think it looks good too, and it makes consistency of the book. But seeing their faces, and she did there's a couple of them that I don't think look quite right, but most of them look really like who they were.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And also, then I'm thinking like now, then there are also these witches of today, people practicing today. Like here we have Levi there.
Also not done by consent. We just drew them too. But I think they'll like it.
Yeah, but people that are alive and well now and thriving and in the craft, but one day will be will be gone. There will be no more Brian, no more Honey here, but there will be this book, and there will be the new people coming into the
Who
craft.
knows? I might come back and read it.
Yeah,
It might be my introduction to the craft again.
that would be the coolest shit ever.
You never know.
Never know. But I think it's amazing that then one day these faces, these people, they will be also part of the history. And then they are now there. So I really enjoyed that. And I think it is really fun for a reader to really see that, oh, there are witches. They are among us. They are these people, and this is what they do, and this is what they think. And that's really interesting. And
I know this is about me, but I really want to ask you, since you have shops there, what is the witchcraft scene like in Finland?
well, as you know, we have Alexandrians here, Gardnerians also. So that's like,
Are
but
the Gardnerians fat? No one in Finland's fat, are they? There's no fat Finland
well,
people.
compared to Americans, we look amazing. You stand out from the Americans, so
Oh, thank you. It must be my Finnish DNA.
it could be that. It must be that. Yeah, but then I think, of course, we've had the new generation of TikTok people coming into witchcraft, and also there are a lot of people interested in our Finnish traditions and the old religions, and so Finland is a lot more pagan and in many ways than BTW. So that's kind of, but I think the interest is coming and the world is opening up. It's crazy to imagine that Tarotpuoti, our tarot shop, we have now 5 stores in Finland, and Finland only has like less than 6 million people in the whole country. So having 5 shops, big shops with massive tarot collections, we have like the biggest tarot collection in Europe. It's crazy, and like amazing books, whatever. So
Are you able to order my books there yet? I
yeah,
know we're working on it.
yeah,
Oh, good,
yeah. We
good.
have them on shelf.
Are you getting it from Ingram or New Leaf?
I don't know. I'm not
Oh,
the purchase department, so
okay, all right.
I'll leave that to him.
Uh,
So
we all have our people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We need those. But then also in both of your books, what I find very useful for also the newcomer witches that are just trying to learn about how to do stuff is that you have a grimoire in both of the books, and they are different, which is helpful and nice, not to be repetitive. But there's like it's not just about the you have astrology, you have herbs, you have invocations, you have poems, you tarot, you have so many things. So it's such a nice, compact way to add so many things so people can see what are the layers. What is, because I always imagine witchcraft like an umbrella, and you have the different pins, and then it makes up this whole thing. So I think the grimoire part also helps to give a great understanding and a whole view, like a 360.
I had to, when I was writing the first book, I wrestled with whether or not how was I going to approach magic in a book, because I'm not really like the kind of person that wants to write a how-to book of magic, which I didn't do really. What I did is I wrote something that you might find, as if you found someone's journal with very little explanation, random, but magic. And I wanted it to enshrine some witchcraft magic in a way,
Yeah.
uh, occult, poetry, folklore. There's more folklore in the first book than the second book. But so it was really just a hodgepodge. It was basically like if you found someone's magical journal, kind of,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, what's this? Um, because I think it's important that we always include magic and the occult when we're having this conversation and we don't become boring academics,
Yeah. Yeah.
which would be my other fear. Being boring is my fear.
You could never be boring. Trust me, never.
Boring. It's the worst crime any witch could commit is to be boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not for us. But I love that you also have a really strong side of occultism. And also, what is really interesting in Covendom, and that you all guys bring different strengths
Mhm.
to the mix. Like Levi's brain is amazing, the religious knowledge, and I don't know how many lives he's been living in temples and whatnot.
I think he's been a rabbi. I think he's definitely been a mystic rabbi.
Yeah,
Probably a monk, a mad monk or something. Levi is he's definitely he's more academic than I am. And Ellie's often kind of not, she's underestimated because people don't know that she has this huge occult background.
yeah,
Yeah, she had a lot of training in I think it's the Servants of the Light, and so it's a Rosicrucian order. So she's got a huge background in the occult and comes from a very thespian occult family anyway.
yeah,
Uh, my forte is craft,
yeah.
and apparently writing poetry. So, but Levi's chosen his hand at that as well. So I think that yeah, we do complement each other because we do bring all these different venues, and we brought Ellie on. I was supposed to originally do the show with somebody else who I'm not going to name for various unfortunate reasons, and that was just an idea at the time. And so when I decided not to do the show with that person, I just asked Levi, "Would you do it with me?" He's sure, why not? And it was great. And I think we did several seasons together. And I think as a team, we worked really well.
Amazing,
I,
right?
I think at that time, it was like I was kind of like the problem, and Levi would like try to make me seem nicer. That's when I go back and look. But it's actually funny to watch some of the earlier episodes because we were really clumsy sometimes. Like if you watch the very first episode, we're really clumsy in the beginning, and then somewhere halfway through we find our wind, and we never lost it after that. But we'd never done it before. But after many seasons and talking about misogyny and things like that, with every season or so, we try to make a change to the show so it could be more exciting and not just the same thing. We didn't want to turn into those two judges from the Muppets, the old judges up in the thing. I don't know if you know. So we invited Ellie on to get a female perspective and to add more crazy. And she has not disappointed in either
No,
regards. So it's a great mix, and we really love doing the show. And now we've got the guests in, which adds another dimension to it.
it's
We've
really,
got we've got a couple more seasons in us for sure. I don't know how long it'll go on, but we've definitely got a couple more seasons for sure.
But
Yeah.
is a treasure chest for people, and I highly recommend it to everybody. So I think it's time to kind of wrap this up because I want to keep it like short, sweet, and simple this
Right.
time
Sweet.
because
Yeah.
you've had a second and another interview already today. And I will link a lot of these also other interviews and stuff where people can find you in the final product of YouTube. And I really want to thank you for taking the time and leaving your legacy with these books. And you say probably not making any more books,
I
right?
might write another book. I don't know if it'll be strictly on the subject of witchcraft. So there's other books in my, like I've thought about writing a book about the fairy faith of Europe. I've thought about writing a few other books that have come into my brain, but strictly, or a poetry book. I really enjoyed most of the poetry in the grimoires is mine. Some of it
Yeah.
was written years and years ago by me. Um, if it's not mine, I cite that it's not, I cite who it
Yeah.
is. I
Yeah.
didn't put my name on every of
Yeah.
them. If it's not old folklore and it's not attributed to somebody else, most likely I wrote it. But some of it I wrote years ago, and just pulled it out. And, there were poems that never made it because some of them were bad. But, I was a big fan of Doreen Valiente, so I think she was a bit of a um, inspiration in that sense. She's better than me, though. So thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed writing the books. I hope they contribute to the craft and
They will.
continue to inspire people and keep the conversation alive because that's the whole point. I think as priesthood, we don't all have to be on the outer court or on the front lines,
Yeah.
but as priesthood, I do think we have a responsibility to continue doing the work that the elders, some of us anyway, especially those of us who have shops.
Thank you, Brian. And
I look forward to your Finnish Alexandrian book someday.
let's see. Until next time, then.
All right, blessed be.
Blessed be. Bye bye.
Bye bye.